Hi, mining community. Welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep the Mining Podcast. And today's guest is Ron Mitchell, who's the Managing Director of Global Lithium Resources, who are a rapidly growing lithium exploration company with a focus on two highly prospective, 100% owned Western Australian projects. The Marble Bar Lithium Project in the Pilbara region and Manna Lithium Project in the Goldfields region. Ron is an experienced commercial business development and sales executive with over 25 years experience in government, manufacturing, mining, renewable and conventional energy and resources sectors. He's an extensive global experience in the lithium battery metals and in the electric vehicle industry, developing strategic collaboration and partnerships with key members of the EV and battery metals supply chain. Ron is also the founding member of the London Metals Exchange Lithium Committee and currently presides as the chairman of the committee. So with all that, let's welcome Ron to the podcast. How you doing, Ron?
Yeah, good, Rob. Great to be here.
Yeah, appreciate your time. So wondered if you can give us a little bit about, give our audience a little bit about your career, about your journey, and then also obviously tell us a little bit about Global Lithium Resources.
Yeah, sure. Happy to, Rob. Yeah, look, I've been in the sector quite an extended period now, more than 11 years. And I joined the sector back in 2011 after returning from an extended stint living and working in Japan, in Tokyo. I was working for a clean tech company over there, mainly in the oil and gas and electric utility space. And I was headhunted for a role at Talison Lithium back in 2011. It's quite an interesting journey because back in those days, the Australian investors, certainly lithium was far too boutique, and the company I was working for at the time had to head across to Toronto to get listed on the TSX to get any sort of lithium exposure. So I've seen the lithium market grow quite substantially since that time. And at that time, in fact, the Greenbushes lithium resource here in Western Australia accounted for more than 50% of the world's supply from a single asset. So it was quite amazing. But lithium back in those days was mainly used in a variety of industrial applications, including glass, ceramics, metallurgy, and also fiberglass, advanced fiberglass. The battery demand accounted for probably less than 5% of total lithium molecules consumed in the market. So I've had the great pleasure of seeing that market develop over the last sort of 10 odd years, to the point now where, you know, really 75 to 80% of all lithium produced is now consumed in the rechargeable battery sector. So after working for Talison for 4 or 5 years, they were acquired under a joint venture between TNG Lithium Corporation and Albemarle, which is the largest lithium producer on the planet based in the US. I was selling a large number of lithium spodumene concentrates into China. The lion's share went into China for conversion into various chemicals such as lithium carbonate, lithium hydroxide, and those two chemicals are widely used now in the electric vehicle sector. And I knew the chairman of TNG Lithium Corp very well, and he offered me a role to head up his the international sales and marketing team. So I was with that company about 6 years. Developed a significant international customer base, mainly in the electric vehicle sector, and I knew really the OEMs and most of the global cell makers on a first name basis. So I developed some great networks and relationships. A very good understanding was developed through the course of that role, 6 odd years working in lithium chemicals. So ultimately all the raw material that's converted into chemicals, and really a good understanding of some of the challenges in terms of bringing new projects into production, but also the complexity around lithium supply and why it is so challenging and nuanced. And then I could really see towards the back end of last year quite a shift in terms of the power base within the sector. And I could see a very fast shift towards the raw material producers really controlling the market. So the opportunity to sort of exit big lithium and get down into the advanced exploration space where there's significant upside if you back the right project. And certainly I feel at Global Lithium I've done that. We've got a fantastic company, fantastic board and management team, strongly motivated by ESG. We've created an incredible culture within the company. We've got 2 really prospective projects we're developing here in Western Australia, which is arguably the greatest lithium jurisdiction on the planet. So we're very excited about the 2 projects. one of which will be coming into development in the very near future by way of a significant resource upgrade, which we'll announce to market in a few weeks. So a very exciting time to be in the sector, Rob.
Yeah. I wonder if you can just tell us about those two projects in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, happy to. So the first of the projects is out in the eastern Goldfields, just out east of a town called Kalgoorlie, very famous mining town here in Western Australia. That's called the Manna Lithium Project, and that project has an initial maiden inferred mineral resource position of close to 10 million tonnes at 1.14%. We've just recently completed a transaction to acquire the outstanding 20% of that project. We picked up the original 80% of the project late last year. We've now completed a wholly owned transaction, so we're free to develop that as we wish going forward, which is wonderful, particularly with this significant resource upgrade coming. So the project itself is an outcropping spodumene-bearing pegmatite. It's advanced exploration. We've completed around 30,000 metres of RC drilling and about 6,000 metres of diamond drilling, and the results are quite simply outstanding. We've been bringing the results to market throughout the course of this year, and we've got a mine of the future at this particular project. So very exciting time. As I said, we've got a project director will be onboarded leading the feasibility work throughout the course of next year. We're anticipating a final investment decision early in 2024, calendar 24, which will segue into construction commencing soon thereafter, and ultimately first production in sort of 2026 timeframe. So talking to the market, our strategic partners, that's the ideal time to be bringing new product to market. And what makes us quite unique on a global basis is the fact we're dual asset. So the second project we have is located up in the Pilbara, a very, very famous mining jurisdiction, mainly famous for its iron ore. It's one of the largest mining jurisdictions on the planet. And we have a project just south of Port Hedland, which is a major port. And again, this is a spodumene-bearing pegmatite, the preferred raw material in the battery industry. It's very easy to process and provides a very consistent, high-quality downstream product. So we're very excited about the exploration that's ongoing at that asset. It's a far bigger system than we anticipated when we first started drilling. And we're just soon to conclude a 50,000 metre plus campaign at Marble Bar. So again, we'll be bringing these results to market periodically, but we're likely to be in a position 12 months from now that we hope we're in a similar position to be able to push the go button on developing that asset as well. So incredibly exciting time, very strong interest, not just from investors, but of course the downstream piece, the partners, the car makers, the major battery players. They're all in very heavy discussions with us around, bringing these products to market.
Obviously, lithium's found in many parts of the world. Just wonder if you can just explain to us the lithium sector within Western Australia. As you mentioned, a few of your projects are in an area with that is surrounded by obviously iron ore projects, and obviously in the Goldfields with obviously some Goldfields. So be interesting to find out how you discovered both of your projects.
Yeah, well, look, we're quite lucky here in Western Australia. We're obviously it's an ancient landscape, and hence it's a very flat landscape. We don't have any big mountains. We used to have them, but they're all deserts now. So from a geological perspective, we're really endowed with a whole range of incredible minerals, including gold and iron ore, and of course our oil and gas assets in the Northwest Shelf are world class. But we also have quite a large number of incredible battery metals as well here in Western Australia, including nickel and copper and of course lithium. So there's more lithium produced out of Western Australia than any other jurisdiction on the planet. Western Australia alone accounts for more than 50% of the world's lithium supply. And we have 5 current active mines and processing plants here in Western Australia. So I'm very lucky. The geology really is the key for us, but also finding these resources requires skill. There's a lot of technical expertise in terms of the geology teams that are working for our company and some of the other lithium players. And we have a lot of commercial experience in terms of bringing these projects to market too. And I'd like to thank our big mining cousins, the likes of BHP and Rio and Fortescue Metals, these sort of companies who have really unlock the value of Western Australia as a jurisdiction, because without those companies, we wouldn't have these incredible ports, rail and road services and networks that we have. And ultimately, without that infrastructure piece, it's very difficult to develop new projects. So again, right place, right time, and the right commodity in terms of lithium.
What's your view on the supply and demand of obviously lithium moving forward? I've sort of noticed over the last 3 or 4 years, probably 3 or 4 years ago, lithium seems to be was in the news a lot. Over the last few years, it sort of died off, but now it seems to be coming back into news. So, yeah, just wonder what your thoughts are around that supply and demand.
Yeah, and that's a good question. And look, again, the reason I've left Big Lithium to come back in this space is because I foresee a tightness in the market lasting the better part of a decade at least. Again, my experience suggests that developing new projects is not easy. Whilst there's a lot of, I call them paper projects, taking a paper project into development is a big challenge. A lot of things have to go right for you, Here in Western Australia, we're lucky. We've got generally a community that's become wealthy on the back of the resources sector. So generally, they're very accepting. We've got a well-established regulatory framework for mine development, more broadly speaking. So that's important. And I've already touched on infrastructure and how important that is. Look, my view is the market is tight and will remain tight. We're experiencing all-time record highs in terms of pricing. Look, it's quite different, Rob, to what we experienced, say, 4 years ago. 2019 was record low pricing. The reason, quite simply, was sort of 4 or 5 years ago, it was all a China story in terms of demand. China sneezed and the rest of the world got a cold, and that's exactly what happened. But now it's a global story. You've got EV makers in Europe and US and North Asia, Japan, Korea, and of course China's still very, very important. But also there's a general acceptance now that EVs, they are part of the future. Consumers love the vehicles. They're voting with their feet. They are more than just vehicles from getting to A to B. They are pieces of technology. And my view, quite simply, when it comes to tech, is never underestimated. So it's a very different dynamic globally now in terms of the demand piece, but also consumers now have choice. And most of the car makers from Europe and North America and even North Asia, there's brand allegiance for their products. And that's something I guess China never had, because China wasn't really exporting their cars overseas. But when likes of a Volkswagen or a BMW or a Ford, if they introduce an electric version of a particular model, they have trust in the market, and that's really, really compelling as a consumer. So that's different. And the cell makers, they can't get enough product. That's the big challenge for the industry at the moment, is finding enough lithium to be able to go into these batteries for the future. So that's for those reasons I foresee the market remaining incredibly tight for the next 10 years at least.
Yeah, obviously you've got experience in the car manufacturing industry. How have those the car manufacturers been working with mining companies like yourself, and how much influence do they have on the mining industry, and again how they helping the mining industry in developing not just lithium but some of the other commodities that are needed for the whole EV market?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think historically there's been very little engagement with the upstream. I mean, if you think about where the EVs the car makers are positioned, they're right on the downstream. There's about 5 steps coming back to the mine that they need to navigate through, including the battery production, the cathode production, then you've got the chemical refining, and then ultimately you've got the companies like ours that are doing the exploration and the mining. So in the past, there has been a bit of a divergence in terms of consultation, engagement throughout the EV value chain, but I think that's changed quite significantly in recent times. Certainly my involvement on the LMA Lithium Committee, that's inclusive of all parts of the EV value chain, and I've seen quite significant engagement. The thing is, mining is very different to buying a mining product or a refined chemical is quite different to buying a car tire or a steering wheel or a bumper. Generally, those products, you can have multiple suppliers all within a 20-kilometre radius of a production plant. And generally, the specs are quite similar. And you can store these products. You can build inventory and stockpiles. But with lithium products, mine products and chemical products, it's quite different. You know, a lot of these refined chemicals have shelf life. So part of it's been a journey of understanding the nuances, because it is a different industry, and the purchasing strategies from the car makers need to adapt and evolve to really consider some of these differences. So yeah, it's an emerging space. I suspect that the car makers, we're already seeing making moves in terms of having direct agreements with mining companies. And I suspect that that's something that will continue to evolve in the coming years.
Obviously, aside from being the managing director of Global Lithium, can you just tell us a little bit more about your role as the chair of the LMA Lithium Committee?
Yeah, look, that's a great role. I've been in that role now for 3 years, and that's a role that carries on with you as an individual. It doesn't reside with the company. So the LME did some quite early market engagement because they were looking to bring in a lithium futures cash settled contract, and looking to build advocacy within the EV value chain more broadly. And as they've done with other commodities, they've similarly in cobalt, they formed a cobalt committee with representatives of the global cobalt industry, and they initiated this very early market engagement, which I give them credit for, because without understanding the market and the major players, it's very difficult. So they did that early, ahead of bringing in the cash settled futures contract. And I knew the team quite well. I was speaking at a number of conferences and developed a very good rapport. And they put the question to me, would you like to chair? You'd be the inaugural chair of the committee, and that was absolutely an opportunity I was very pleased to accept. So had the privilege of building out that committee over time. It's got representatives on there from Tesla and Ford and Northvolt, Toyota Tsusho, Goldman Sachs. There's a few trading entities on there. So it's quite a significant committee. There's about 12 members. And effectively, the role of the committee is twofold. One is to really, it's advocacy more broadly. So where there's challenges within the sector, each of the segments within the value chain is to try and unpack those and explore those. And the second component is to really promote that cash settled futures contract, which I explained. And that is really about providing the industry a price risk mitigation tool by way of hedging, and also to develop a greater level of sophistication in terms of pricing products within the sector. So you'll see that continue to mature. The big challenge with these new sort of products is to build liquidity, and that generally takes time.
You mentioned in 2019 lithium prices were pretty low. How have lithium prices evolved over time, and where do you see the lithium price moving over the next 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, it's a good question. If I had my crystal ball out, I'd probably I wouldn't be here having a podcast. I'd be retired on a beach somewhere in Miami. But look, as I said, I foresee tightness in this market. So pricing, I think, just by virtue, will remain elevated. Just in terms of how prices have been structured more broadly within the industry, I think historically they've been very much fixed price focused. So companies have taken fixed price positions for periods under long-term contracts. But what you're seeing in terms of the market now is very much a market pricing dynamic. Because of the volatility in pricing, particularly, most sellers now are really focused on market pricing, and there's a number of global indexes that portray market prices. So Fast Markets, Benchmark Minerals Intelligence, another company based in the UK, have a fantastic reputation of reporting sort of weekly and monthly lithium prices for a whole range of products. So I think going forward, you're going to see greater transparency around lithium pricing as it relates to contracts between sellers and buyers. But as pricing persists more specifically, I think we've still got upside ahead of us.
Looking at obviously the whole EV market, what role can Australia play in supporting the EV electrification ambitions of, I suppose, the globe? Because obviously every government is moving towards EVs in obviously many, not just cars, but other using it as an energy supply. What would you say Australia? How can Australia play a major role in, I suppose, the global sense of things?
Yeah, sure. Well, look, quite frankly, and this might sound a little bit controversial, I mean, the globe cannot achieve its electrification ambitions without Australia. It's as simple as that. Our metals and our mining industry is pivotal to the success of the electrification ambitions of Europe, North America. Quite simply, the resources just are not there in those jurisdictions. So, yeah, and again, I talked about the commercial, technical, legal expertise we have here in Australia and Western Australia in particular as it relates to lithium. It's a peerless jurisdiction from that perspective. So, you know, we think the engagement with governments is critical. So, and I will say that since our borders have opened this year, we've been visited by a number of government delegations from around the world looking to better understand how Australian companies can help deliver these products to the market, because we do have a very good reputation. So, and obviously we're mindful of some of the geopolitical challenges the globe is facing currently, looking to deal with our major trading partners, of which, you know, Europe of course is a major one of those. And looking to develop, you know, refined lithium units to help support the electrification of Europe is absolutely key. And the other point I'll make, Rob, is that this industry, battery metals and electrification, is that this is an opportunity, the first time in humanity, you know, we've had an opportunity to be part of an industry that is going to create a better place, not just for our kids, but for our grandkids. And whilst the oil and gas industry was pivotal in terms of the evolution, the development of society, it is arguably, it has left, you know, an environmental footprint. And we hope that the electrification of the world's auto fleets, as an example, will offset that. So it's an incredibly exciting challenge we have. It's an enormous challenge, no doubt, but I think with a collective mindset, we can overcome.
Yes, certainly. And lastly, what's the outlook for Global Lithium and your projects over, say, next 6 to 12 months? And is there anything else that you'd like to add, concluding, that you want to obviously can give our audience?
Yeah, sure. Well, look, we're quite simply, we're moving as fast as we can. I mean, this is a great opportunity for any company is involved in advanced exploration that has a resource, which we have. It's a case of getting that resource developed and into market as quickly as possible. So that is our number one ambition. Our entire team is incentivized and motivated to achieve that goal. So yeah, I think the next sort of 6 to 12 months, you can expect major resource upgrade, significant metallurgical announcements to market. There's some M&A we're looking at. But it's just project development, and it's getting through all the various project development milestones, and ultimately getting to that final investment decision as quickly as possible. So it's an incredible moment in history for us, I think, as a globe, and it's great to see the support and the collaboration on a worldwide scale, because this technology is crucial to our success in the long term.
Yeah. Ron, really appreciate your time and give us an overview of Global Lithium, and also obviously the lithium market, and obviously what Australia will bring to the EV market and the EV industry. If our audience wants to reach out to you, how can they go about doing that? I also know that you're going to be at the Mines and Money event next week, which is the 28th or 29th to the 31st. So yeah, if obviously people want to reach out to you and approach you and ask you questions, obviously they can do if they're going to be at the event. But if they're not, how else can they reach you, and what social media platforms are you on?
Yeah, sure. We're on all the major platforms: Twitter, LinkedIn. I will be at Mines and Money, booth A13, so please come and say hello if you're there. Alternatively, yeah, please reach out via LinkedIn. Send me a meeting request, and I'm happy to have further discussion. Yeah.
Yep, and we can include those in the show notes, accompanying this podcast anyway. So really appreciate your time again. Thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed that episode. Obviously, lithium is here, and the EV market is obviously going to be the future. So appreciate if you can share this episode to everyone around the world that may be listening. Appreciate your time. And until next time, happy mining.